I'm going to go over the gap and go trades that I pointed out for the week of January 8th through the 12th. First up is NEO. We did not close the gap that I have been tracking to the upside, closing out at $10.31. So this gap is still in play. This gap that closes out at $9.04 is also still in play for the upcoming week. We are certainly not in that channel, not in that zone, but something to be aware of to the upside if you are going long. That one closes out at 848. Meantime, two gaps formed within this week, and this one opened and closed. So this gap is no longer in play, but this gap that developed will take us to $7.91, opens up at roughly $7.84. This gap that I have been tracking to the south side that takes us down to $7.43, fortunately did close out. It touched right about there. So this gap will no longer be a threat to the downside. We have already touched. And as you can see, our performance for the week is down 12%. NEO is cracking. The next one is SoFi. I'm not going to go over price targets for the upcoming week. I will do that in a different video. But this gap opened up for this week, just a little one. So I will track that, although that is not the original gap that I have been tracking for quite some time. This gap opened up and closed out, as well as this one. But the gap that I am tracking for my gap and go trades is this one. That takes us out to 962. This one is still in play, as you can see as well. That takes us up to 994, and this gap takes us to $11.29. For the week, we are down 4.5%. Next one is Tesla. Tesla has been doing very poorly. The gap that I originally was tracking takes us up to, oops, not the right thing I wanted to grab. That will take us to 1150. This one takes us out to 1196. And this gap takes us to roughly 1308. We are not in that channel, not in the zone. Obviously for Tesla, we are going down 8% for the week. And meantime, for Tesla, we have also opened up a few other gaps. We gap down, so I will anticipate when we finally correct to go to the upside, but these gaps hopefully will close as we make our way out to possibly 4 standard deviations if we go up for the week. This one gap down, so I will anticipate a gap up when we correct. That is not in the channel, not in the zone. I just track between -2 and 2 standard deviations. So on Tuesday, we could touch roughly 1038 if we go to the upside. And then obviously we will be at resistance and then go down a little bit. But again, some gaps to look forward to the upside, but that is a ways off. The next one is Snap. For Snap, we are up nearly 2%. The gap that I was talking about for Snap closed out, fortunately, on Monday. from the previous week. I was tracking it. No, this is the first week that I mentioned it because this gap had not closed out. And on Monday, the 8th, we did. Touched right there to the upside. We gapped down, so I anticipate a gap up, and it filled. And then we climbed our way up, clawed our way up to 4 standard deviations here. And what happens at resistance? People take their profits, they lock in and they leave, lock in and leave, okay? So then we fell down to -3 standard deviations. And what happens at support? A little bounce to the upside here. And I will no longer be tracking snap. I will find another gap trade to talk about and track for the upcoming week. The next one is Pfizer. Unfortunately, Pfizer is down 1% for the week, but for the month up 9%. I am in this trade for my mom. The gap that I was tracking, these are old price targets, so ignore that, takes us up to $30. Let me move this line out of the way. Takes us to $30.35. We are not in that channel, not in the zone. We are in a downward channel. So if you like to go short, this might be your opportunity. But this gap closed to the downside, and this gap has not closed to the downside. So I see some landmines in store for our future if we continue to go south. We are not in the channel, not in the zone, something to be aware of. A little tiny gap cracked right here, which I will anticipate it to close this week, and this one as well. The next one is Altria Group. For the week, we're down more than 0.5%. The gap that I am tracking takes us to the north side at $42.40. We are not in that channel. I will anticipate some time this week we will get to 41.68, however. But again, I'll talk about that later. The gap began, it touched here, but did not make it to the upside. And as a matter of fact, we fell to the south side. But that's the gap we are looking at for this upcoming week. The next one is SLB. This has been on my gap and go trades for quite some time. The gap that I am tracking takes us up to $56.39. We are not there, not in that zone or channel, but at least we are in an upward channel for Schlumberger. And meantime, this gap developed to the upside. So we have 2 gaps pulling us up northward. This gap opens up at roughly, turn off my magnet so my price doesn't get wonky, 50.64. And this one closes out at 51.86. Note this gap that I have been tracking touched to the south side, right about there. So this gap is no longer a threat to us to the south side. We have already closed. Bye-bye. Now this one has not closed to the south side and is definitely within our realm for Tuesday. The next one is BABA. We are in an upward channel, so that's good to see. Down almost 3% for the week. The gap that I have been tracking is this one, closes out at 70.64. There are actually several of them. This one has bounced us all around. This closes out at 76.54 and 78.46. I'm definitely tired of talking about BABA, but some gaps to the upside to look forward to. We are not in that channel, not in the zone. The closest one obviously will be this one, but that will probably not get there on Monday or Tuesday. Maybe, fingers crossed, by the end of the week. But all the red gaps that you see have closed to the south side. So that is good to see. I'm not tracking any other ones right now. I'm just tracking these to the upside. But if you go wide, monthly, weekly, daily, you will see other gaps to the south side to be aware of. Oh, and this one, I forgot, also takes us up to $87.03. Next up is Starbucks. We ended the week at down 1.12%. The gap that I am tracking takes us to $97.64. Unfortunately, the channel we are looking at is going down. So this is not in our realm and not for a while, and unless something unexpected happens. But there is a gap that takes us to the south side. We almost touched, but if you make this a little bit bigger, not there, no cigar. That touched, or the price went down to $91.77 to close. We must get down to $91.72. So it looks like there's more pain ahead. And this bomb right here, this landmine that we will step on eventually, and it will take us to 85.18. All right. Nike is the next one. We are down. We are up more than 1.5% for the week, but down for the day on Friday. But this is where we ended. The gap that I have been tracking, it started right here at 104.02. So looking at this, we closed to the upside. Nice. So this gap is done. Meantime, this baby gap opened up this week as well, and as you can see, touched and closed, but that was not the original gap I was tracking. Let me close this out. So the next gap, look at this, we touched, but no cigar. So I will be tracking this one to the upside. That takes us to 106.47. And this one takes us to 122.40. 122.40. Delete that one. All right, we are not in that channel, not in the zone. Something to be aware of. It begins at 110.15. Oops. And meantime, I did see this gap from the previous week that opened up, but that is not the gap I was originally tracking. Turn on my magnet. It gapped down, so I anticipate a gap to the upside, and we did close out right there, so that's nice. And fortunately, we are in an upward channel. Next one is Oracle. The gap that I was tracking takes us to $114.83. Not in that channel, but fortunately, we are in an upward channel. That gap begins at 104.89. We touched it, went up to resistance, and sunk back down. But meantime, this is not a gap I will be tracking, but there is a gap that went up, so I will anticipate price to go down. The next one is Lowe's. We ended the week at 218.91, up nearly 4%. The gap that I have been tracking takes us to 218, and we touched right there on Wednesday. This gap is no longer in play. I will delete that. This gap is, oops, that is not what I wanted to grab. This gap is still in play and will take us to 225.33 roughly. And finally, NVIDIA. The gap that I was tracking closed on Monday, the 8th. We opened up on Monday there. Let me move these lines so you can see it a little bit better. This is the gap I was tracking, and it touched right there on Monday. So this gap is no longer in play to the upside. Done. So I will no longer be tracking that because we finally closed out on the 8th. And that's NVIDIA. Let me jot this down. I thought there were 3 trades that closed out this week. Let me go through this very quickly again. So NEO, definitely not. SoFi, definitely not. Tesla, a big Tron there. Snap, we closed. Pfizer, we did not. Altria Group, nope. SLB, close, no cigar. No on Baba. No on Starbucks. No on Nike. Oracle takes us to 114.83. Lowe's and NVIDIA. So just 2 stocks closed their gaps, just like last week. I only had 2 as well. So this week I will find 2 more tickers, and that will be my new gap and go trades for the upcoming week. That is a look at the gap and go trades. Thank you so much for watching.